one of the most polarizing conversations today when it comes to the current state of America, businesses, macroeconomics is the minimum wage. Before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan, and this channel exists to encourage you to mastermind your business the master's way. May not be subscribed yet, so if you aren't, please hit that subscribe button. All right, now let's get into the video. This is going to shock a lot of you guys. This will make a lot of sense to people who are business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs, and this will upset people that aren't wired that way.
Progressive politicians love to talk about raising the minimum wage. It makes them sound caring, compassionate, concerned. They're on the side of the worker, standing against the greedy employer. The current call is for a national $15 an hour minimum wage, more than double the current federal rate of $7.25. A number of cities and states are already there.
Yep.
Including New York, California, Washington, D.C., and Seattle.
California just raised our fast food minimum wage to
20? Was it 20? Something crazy. $20 an hour.
$20 an hour, which
Unless you're a baker.
has caused, I think, the Big Mac meal to get to, I want to say, around $17 an hour for a Big Mac meal.
You mean $17?
Sorry, not $17 an hour, $17. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Considering it. The left casts the minimum wage debate as a war between employee and employer. But most business owners pay their workers as much as they can. Finding and keeping good people is the hardest part of any employer's job. I know. For 17 years, I ran CKE Restaurants, the parent company of Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. Our company and franchise restaurants employed over 75,000 people. But as with most retail businesses, our profit margins were razor thin. Based on my experience, if we adopt a national minimum wage of $15, here's what will happen. 1, a lot of people will lose their jobs or have their hours reduced. According to a 2014 Congressional Budget Office study, just a $10 minimum wage would cost 500,000 jobs as businesses terminate employees. Obviously, far more jobs would be lost at $15 an hour. To survive, employers would have to reduce hours, even for workers who manage to keep their jobs. That's a pay cut. 2, businesses will close, and the jobs they created will disappear. A recent report from researchers at the Harvard Business School found that each $1 increase in the minimum wage results in a 4 to 10% increase in the likelihood of restaurants closing.
That's crazy.
An over $7 an hour increase to $15 would be devastating, not only for restaurants, but for small businesses and their employees. 3, young people will lose that entry-level job opportunity. My first job was scooping ice cream at a Baskin-Robbins in Cleveland, Ohio in the 1960s. Now, it paid just $1 an hour, but it taught me valuable lessons like the importance of showing up on time, teamwork, and presenting a happy demeanor to customers. No one can get that better job until they have their first job.
That's hugely important.
Yeah.
No one get that better job until you first get that first job. What people don't understand is that the minimum wage is never intended to be a livable wage. A lot of these are entry-level service-based positions. They're not. You're not supposed to survive off of them.
Yeah.
Right? They're supposed to be for people to develop their skills as teenagers. My first real official job was working at Pizza Hut, right? And it taught me a lot about showing up, about having a good attitude, about sounding happy on the phone. Like all these things were super duper important. I was the customer service per person, right?
Yeah, and then if you have to meet a certain minimum wage that's really high, the business owner is going to be hiring someone that already knows those things. There's going to be no training period.
That's right.
Like you want the amazing communicator, you want the person that's going to step up and sweep up the floors and move along the production really fast and do all those things. And that's why it wouldn't be available to a 16 or 17-year-old is because they would have to learn those things.
Right. Right.
The cost of all workers will have to go up. If you hire a dishwasher at $15 an hour, your cooks will be unhappy with their wages. You're going to have to pay everybody more, which increases labor costs across the board.
Right.
That's more pressure on profits. Too much pressure and you're out of business. 5, fewer people will open businesses. $15 an hour is a very steep hill to climb. Would-be entrepreneurs will do the math on labor costs and realize it's just not worth the risk.
Or they will figure out ways to 1099 people.
Yeah.
Sometimes illegally. Right? Because you can't 1099 someone if they have to come in for specific hours.
Yeah.
Or they will just be solopreneurs. The harder it becomes for us to scale with labor, it makes sense why other creators just don't hire people. They'll just be solopreneurs and they'll just bottleneck their own business. But hey, at least I can take 20 grand home a month from YouTube AdSense and I'm good.
Yeah, you have to sacrifice a lot to create a scalable company.
Right. And so it's not, I think what people misunderstand is it's not just paying the people. You also got to manage the people. You got to lead the people.
Yep.
You got to have schedules for the people. You got to have systems for the people. So there's a lot of things that go into this sort of stuff.
This is a real cost to the economy that we can't measure. A company that never exists never employs anyone. 6, prices for everything will go up. as businesses pass higher labor costs along to consumers. One of two things will happen. Either consumers won't pay the higher prices and businesses will lay off workers or close, or consumers will pay higher prices and have less money to spend elsewhere. Either way, the higher minimum wage will represent a drag on the overall economy. Now, this may sound like doom and gloom, but it's already a reality for many business owners and workers in the cities and states that are raising the minimum wage. In San Francisco, AQ, a 2012 James Beard Award finalist for the best new
This is
restaurant
so
in
sad.
America,
Watch this.
saw rising labor costs drive its profit margins down from 8.5% in 2012 to 1.5% by 2015. So it shut the doors. Jeremy Marin's chain of Cuban restaurants in New York closed 2 locations because of minimum wage increases and has raised prices at the restaurants he's still operating. The minimum wage, he said, is going up too fast. We can't catch our breath. Kevin McNamee is a chiropractor in California. I'll be moving my 2 companies out of Los Angeles, he wrote in a letter to the New York Times. When the city compels me to pay employees $15 an hour, it comes out of my pocket. Last year, my employees made more than I did.
Jeez.
Bad business. Bad business model.
Bad business. But I think about, like, you think about someone that's a business owner. There's not a lot of business owners that have great margins that are actually drawing the right amount from their business.
Yeah.
So yes, bad business, but like there's a lot of business owners that live on fairly low incomes after all the expenses paid.
Yeah, they're not living on substantial incomes.
Yeah.
The only benefit, so and that's the huge question is, like, if you're a business owner, do you maximize for profits at the expense of or maximize for scalability at the expense of you not taking as much money home versus just being the guy that does it all and then you make more money? The big difference there is that, like, the business owner that's investing into the scalability and probably not taking as much home is that they're creating a version of security by having a business that can run on its own. Exactly.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So it's like if you get injured,
but if you're running on its own and you're making less than your employees,
oh yeah. I mean,
like,
that's an L.
how long is that going to keep going?
Totally.
You know?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Exactly.
Now, these stories are already all too common. Expect them to become more so as cities and states pile on the $15 minimum wage bandwagon. So, if a $15 minimum wage doesn't help workers and doesn't help employers, who exactly does it help? Well, maybe just the progressive politicians who manage to mislead voters into believing that it's the right thing to do. Sounding caring, compassionate, and concerned is all well and good, but having a job is better.
The right minimum wage, and we'll end it on this thought.
The right minimum wage,
Listen.
$0.00. That was the headline of an editorial in one of America's most prestigious newspapers. Can you guess which one? The Wall Street Journal, perhaps. Right city, wrong paper. This editorial appeared in the New York Times in 1987. There's a virtual consensus among economists, the Times wrote, that the minimum wage is an idea whose time has passed. So economists and the liberal paper were on the same page, pun intended. Why? Because they understood that a minimum wage does not guarantee jobs. It guarantees only that those who get jobs will be paid at least that minimum. And that leads to 2 bad outcomes: unemployment and higher prices. I can best explain this by asking a simple question. What is a wage? A wage is the price of labor. Now, what happens if the price of labor rises not because workers have become more productive, not because a business must pay higher wages to hold on to valuable employees, but only because the government requires it? When the minimum wage rises, employers will adjust. They will use less labor. They'll fire current employees or cut back on their hours. They will also raise prices for their goods or services. These are undesirable consequences. But let's also consider another bad effect. Businesses will hire fewer workers, especially those with little or no job experience. Suppose you're young and haven't worked many jobs before. Maybe you've never had a job and are trying to land your first one. The work you can offer an employer may be worth only, say, $7 an hour. You agree?
Yes.
He agrees?
Yes.
And you have your first job. But what if the minimum wage set by the government is higher than $7? What if it's $10 or more? Well, you won't get the job. You may be willing to work for $7 an hour, but under minimum wage laws, it would be illegal for you to do so.
I think that the punchline is quite simply, a lot of the policies that are being flaunted, that are being passed, that seem to come off like they mean well, are detrimental to the same people they're trying to help, because it increases prices, it cuts their hours, it causes inflation, and it prevents people from actually getting jobs because they don't have the skill set to get the job yet. So people are more reluctant to hire people, right? And it's a really interesting balance that we're in. I don't think this is understood well enough until someone becomes a business owner themselves to actually feel that tension and being pulled in different ways. I think a lot of people just don't understand the variables. Now, here is who does and can benefit from increased minimum wages in a way, is the bigger companies. So think about the person that's owning a restaurant. Think about the person that has a mom and pop shop, food truck. Think about the person, right? Those people are either going to pay people under the table, or they're going to 1099 them, probably illegally, or they're not going to be able to hire people. You know who will be able to hire more people, regardless of what the minimum wage is? The bigger corporations, the Amazons, the Walmarts, because they're already so big and they're already so massive that they will be able to keep up with it and have more of the pool to grab. This is what you see happening in major towns. When a Walmart moves in, small businesses shut down. And so the solution to this, in my opinion, is to continue developing your own skill set and your own utility to an employer, or to be a solopreneur, that regardless on what the government is dictating or not dictating, your own skill set is so valuable because you maybe never having to deal with these issues, or you may have to figure out ways to earn more money, or you may have to be a solopreneur if you're an entrepreneur for a while, meaning you will have to develop more skills because it may be difficult for you to scale. And you scale through labor often, but you could also scale through better systems and better optimization, better integration of how you're operating your business so that you're getting more done with less actual heavy lifting. So those are the solutions to try and make yourself avoid these things. And the tricky part is also internships, right? What is an internship actually worth, right? If you don't have a minimum wage, if you have a high minimum wage, then a lot of companies might start just not paying people anything and call it an internship, right? And obviously there's legal regulations around that, but think about it. If you can go work for your ideal employer for a summer and not have to work with the idea of potentially turning into an employee thing, a lot of companies, I think, are going to start pimping out the concept of internships, right? And is that better or is that worse? Would that person been better off if he's making $7-10 an hour and acquiring the skills? Or is he better off not getting paid anything while he's acquiring the skills? And in not getting paid anything, does that develop any sort of incentive to keep doing the internship, right? So I think there's going to be a lot more disruptions, and the people who are going to be left behind, in my opinion, are the people that don't have the skill sets that will get hit with the reality that even if the minimum wage is $30 an hour, that's just going to make prices rise. That's just going to make prices continue to rise. And regardless on what the entry-level position is, you're still going to have to level up your skill set so that you're not crushed by whatever the market is dictating in terms of the government intervention. Thank you so much for watching that video. Guys, I believe that one of the best ways you can build a business is by first building a platform online. So Zach Sparazzo put together a free training for you on the #1 metric you can be looking for to explode your YouTube platform. Click the link in the pinned comment below so you can start that now. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.